So WandaVision on Disney Plus has recently come to an end, and I have a lot of feelings about this show. And yes, this review will be full of spoilers, so I'm sure most of you guys who are watching this video probably have already watched WandaVision, but in case you guys have not watched it yet, this is your warning. So in terms of how I felt about the first two WandaVision episodes, I had mixed feelings about them. On one hand, they were a little confusing, but on the other hand, I really admired the authenticity and the details they added to make the episodes look like 1950s sitcoms, like I Love Lucy, The Dick Van Dyke Show, and Bewitched. They did a really good job being authentic to those sitcoms from that time period. But to me, the show got better once when we got to episode 3, and once when we got to episode 4, that's when things really started to pick up. What I really loved about WandaVision the most was how it built up the mystery as to why Wanda created this sitcom setting. You weren't really sure why Wanda created the world up until episode 8, where it explains her backstory and why she wanted to create this world. And it was really cool, and I thought episode 8 was the best episode in my personal opinion, and they did a really good job replicating sitcoms from other time periods too, like the 80s and the 90s, like with Malcolm in the Middle, and the 2000s with The Office and Modern Family. And I really liked the supporting characters too. I liked Agnes, or Agatha, I should say. Katherine Hayne did such a good job playing Agatha, and I recently watched Step Brothers for the first time, and I thought Katherine Hayne was hilarious in that movie, and she's definitely growing as one of my favorite actresses working right now. The one thing I really want to commend WandaVision on is the performances with Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. They're fantastic in the show, but to me, the real scene stealer is Elizabeth Olsen. She is by far the best actress in this show. And I liked the characters who hung out at the sword facility too. I liked Jimmy Woo. I thought he was a much better addition here than he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp because he was given a purpose to do. I liked Monica. I thought she was a very fascinating character. Okay, here's the thing. I didn't like Darcy in the Thor movies all that much, but I thought she was a pretty good addition here. For the most part, I say that because when we're first introduced to her, I was like, oh no, they're bringing this character back. And she was annoying at first, but it got to a point where I was like, whatever, I'll get used to this. I will say this though, whenever the show did focus on Sword, it wasn't nearly as interesting as the main storyline with Wanda. Whenever the show circled back to Hayward, who was the sword director, you don't care about him and you don't care about his plan or his motivation. He's just yet again another boring MCU character who's given nothing to do. One of the problems I had with WandaVision was, and I feel like most people will probably agree with me on this, whenever the show was doing its own thing, being original, it was really good. But when it was trying to be yet again another MCU thing, it wasn't nearly as investing. Now, in terms of how I felt about the finale, I can definitely understand why people were disappointed by it. But for me personally, I enjoyed it for what it was, but there was one problem that I had with it. I will admit, when the episode focused on the big 30-minute battle between Wanda and Agatha and Vision and the White Vision, it wasn't interesting, and it got to a point where I was like, okay, this is getting really repetitive. But when the episode focused on Wanda and her grief, it was really good. And the CGI left a lot to be desired too. There was a shot where it showed Vision and he was floating in the air and the green screen looked pretty noticeable. And there was another shot where it showed Wanda and she was hovering in the air and the green screen there looked pretty noticeable too. But to be fair, I know it's technically a TV show and TV shows don't have the same budgets as movies do. So I'll at least give it a pass. Another problem I had with the finale was there were some details that I thought weren't fulfilled enough, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but at the end of the episode, the White Vision goes up in the air and disappears. Like, what happened to him? Are they gonna, reintroduce him in a future movie? What happened to him? So I'm sure you guys are probably waiting for me to talk about this, so yeah, I'll just get into it now. They reintroduced Pietro, except this time he was played by Evan Peters from X-Men. They didn't bring back Aaron Taylor Johnson from Age of Ultron. But it wasn't actually Pietro. It was a citizen of Westview who Agatha had under her control. And his name was Ralph Boner.
Yeah, that's not funny.
Personally, I don't care about fan theories. I could honestly care less about them, but I can definitely understand why fans were upset about this. With Disney now owning Fox, you would think this would be their way of introducing the X-Men into the MCU, because as we know, Evan Peters played Quicksilver in those movies, and ironically, Quicksilver was Wanda's brother. But instead, they took that opportunity and they shunked it out the window, and instead, they used it for some stupid joke that some 12-year-old kid probably wrote himself. So overall, guys, for what it was, I enjoyed WandaVision for the most part. Yeah, it did have problems, it did have flaws, there were some things that I thought could have been handled better, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. I give WandaVision a 7.5 out of 10. So, if you have watched WandaVision, what are your thoughts on it? Whatever they are, just leave them in the comments below. And if you want to see more of my videos, just be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more great content.